When I was 8 years old, I learned that love could be conditional. That day at the airport, I didn't understand what was happening, not at first. My mom held my hand tightly as we stood near the boarding gate. My older sister, Claire, was crying quietly beside me, her small suitcase clutched to her chest. We were supposed to fly back home after visiting relatives, but something felt wrong. My parents kept whispering to each other, exchanging looks that made my stomach twist. Then my dad knelt down and smiled, that fake, heavy kind of smile that adults use when they're about to say something terrible. "Sweetheart," he said softly, "we think it's better if Claire stays here for a while." I remember blinking at him, confused. "Stays? But we're going home." Mom looked away. "We talked about it," she said. "We all agreed. Even your grandparents think it's best." Then she turned to my sister. "You'll be fine here, honey. You can help around, learn to be independent." Claire's face went pale. She looked at me, then at them. "But I want to go home," she whispered, her voice shaking. Dad sighed, pretending to sound gentle, but already pulling me toward the gate. "We all voted, sweetheart," he said again. "We all voted that you should stay." The last image I have of her from that day is her face pressed against the glass wall of the terminal, tears streaming down. As I was dragged away, I didn't understand why they left her behind. I thought maybe she'd done something wrong, something bad enough to deserve it. But even as a kid deep down, I knew it wasn't right. Years passed and no one talked about Claire. Not at the dinner table, not at holidays, not ever. When I asked where she was, my parents said, "She's living with family. She's fine." But the silence around her was heavy, like a wound no one wanted to touch. My parents acted like she had simply stopped existing, like she'd been erased. When I turned 16, curiosity turned into obsession. I started digging, old letters, emails, anything I could find. That's when I discovered the truth. Claire hadn't stayed with family. She'd been left with distant relatives of my mother's, people she'd barely known. And then after a year, she'd run away. No one had tried to find her. No one even cared. That night, I confronted my parents. I remember standing in the kitchen, my hands trembling as I held an old letter I'd found. One written by Claire when she was 10. In her messy handwriting, she'd begged them to take her home. My mom looked at it, expressionless, then said, "She made her choice." Her choice? I snapped. She was 8. Dad's voice was cold. "You don't know what it was like back then. She was difficult. Always emotional. Always fighting with your mother. We thought it would be better this way." Better. That word burned in my head. Better for who? I stopped talking to them much after that. The guilt of being the child who got to stay haunted me. Every time I looked at old photos, I saw her face beside mine, smiling, trusting, unaware of what was coming. When I turned 23, I moved out and cut off most contact. I still thought about Claire constantly, wondering where she was, if she was alive, if she remembered me. Then one evening, I got an email. No subject line. Just a single sentence. "It's been a long time, little sister." I froze. My heart raced as I read it over and over. It was from an unfamiliar address, but I knew it was her. We started exchanging messages. Her tone was calm, but there was a quiet strength in her words, something sharp beneath the surface. She told me about the years after she was left behind. How she'd been shuffled from one house to another, surviving by sheer will. At 16, she'd gotten a scholarship to a boarding school through a charity program. From there, she'd worked, studied, built herself up. She was living abroad now, successful, independent. She said she wasn't angry, but I could feel the weight of everything she didn't say. Then, out of nowhere, she wrote, "Mom and Dad invited me to dinner next week. They don't know I'm in touch with you. You should come." I didn't know what to expect. When I arrived at my parents' house that night, they looked as polished and proud as ever. My father was bragging about some retirement investment. My mother was fussing with the table settings. And then the doorbell rang. When Claire walked in, everything stopped. She looked nothing like the little girl I remembered. She was poised, confident, elegant, dressed in a tailored suit, her expression calm but unreadable. My mother's smile froze on her face. My father's fork clattered onto his plate. "Claire," Mom whispered. Claire smiled faintly, It's been a long time, she said, her voice steady. I thought it was time to visit the family who voted me out. The silence that followed was suffocating. My parents stumbled through excuses. We thought you were happy. We did what was best. You didn't want to come back. But Claire didn't raise her voice once. She simply listened, eyes cold and patient, as if she'd been waiting for this moment her entire life. Then she placed an envelope on the table. I wanted you to see something, she said. Inside were documents, articles, business profiles, and news clips. My father's eyes widened as he recognized the name of the company featured in bold letters. The same firm that had recently offered him a lucrative consulting contract. Claire looked straight at him. That company? It's mine. My mother gasped. Dad blinked, speechless. You're joking. She shook her head. I built it from the ground up. I've worked with government clients, international firms, and yes, the contract you were bragging about last week? I signed it. Her voice hardened slightly. You said I'd ruin the family if I stayed. Looks like I did better without it. I wanted to cry, not out of sadness, but pride. My sister had turned her pain into power. The dinner ended awkwardly. My parents tried to mask their humiliation behind politeness, but the damage was done. After they left, Claire and I sat on the porch together, the night air cool and still. You know, she said softly. I used to dream about revenge. About making them feel the fear I felt at that airport. But now, I just wanted them to see who I became without them. I nodded. You did more than that. You made them face what they did. She smiled, a small, tired smile. I guess that's enough. We talked for hours that night, about everything and nothing. When she finally left, she hugged me tight. You were just a kid, she whispered. None of it was your fault. For the first time in years, I believed her. Now every Christmas, Claire sends me a plane ticket. Not as an invitation, but as a reminder. A reminder of the day they left her at the airport, and the day she learned to fly on her own. Because sometimes, revenge isn't loud or cruel. Sometimes it's silent, found in success, peace, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing the people who abandoned you are watching from below, realizing what they lost the moment they voted you out.